I've been waiting all day for this. Baron, my handsome man. Hi, human. Hey, babe. You ready? All right. Let's roll it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Soul Sense. The intro of the giggles on the way, it actually makes perfect sense for our dynamic together. But joining me for this chat today is a great friend of mine, someone who I look to for inspiration a lot in my own life. So Marisa is joining us today from her cozy little corner of the world, which is beautiful, by the way. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm loving the weather. I'm here for it. Having all the windows open and getting some fresh air is the best.
Isn't it fantastic? I just moved into a new location where we have central air, and I'm not an air conditioned person, so I'm adjusting, but I'm always cold in the house, and I find I'm actually slightly grumpy because I'm cold. And I know that sounds like a silly problem to have, but I love the cross breeze in a house is really good.
Oh, absolutely. Like my house is is over 100 years old. So I have figured out where in the house you get the best cross breezes during the summer. And I love having it open, especially in the late evening where the sun's starting to go down, you can hear the crickets and you're just like, I'll be in my little corner reading going, oh, this is great.
This is perfect. Your house is over 100 years old. What's your favorite piece of it? And is there still part of the original structure?
I'm sorry. It was, yeah, everything. I mean, obviously the upstairs, the previous owners kind of, essentially the attic is now the master bedroom. So that's our bedroom. I don't know. Just something about this house. I mean, it's just whenever we first came to look at it, whenever we were house hunting, it was the first place in my heart said home. It was. I mean, every place, because we had looked at least about 10 places in Kingston. And at this point, it's just, after you're just wearing down, because obviously, I like this one. Well, I don't like this one. And the minute Matt stepped in, we were doing the tour, and I was just, all of a sudden, my brain was like, this is home.
Oh, I love that. How many times did you see it before you knew?
The one time. Seriously.
But I mean, how many times did you see it before it was yours and you had him set on it?
We had been on a couple of places that we just okay, we can live with this. But this was and I think the reason why that particular thing, knowing this feels like home means a lot to me, because this is the first house I've ever owned as an adult. My husband was a homeowner before we got married in Quebec, and I've obviously been a lifetime renter in various American cities. But this place was the first place where I'm like, this is home. And and every day I just love that. I put so much work into it. I painted so many things. I never want to paint again because I spent a month painting things. But
I don't want to say it again, but I hope Matt watches this, that I painted a lot of things in this house. I want you to know that. I love that you said that. So I'm going to circle back because you're now, you call Canada home, but you were just a bit of a visitor for a moment in time. Do you feel, how long have you been in Canada, first off, and do you finally feel like it's home here, or have you always felt like it's home here?
I have been here now 11 years, which still blows my mind. I'm because I moved here in March 2009. So it's really one of those things. I didn't realize to the degree when I first moved to Canada that I was actually homesick for the first handful of years, for the first 2 to 3 years. And then as more and more as I acclimated, this is home. I mean, I think for the first few years I lived here, my family was pretty much hoping that we'd somehow figure out how to move to the U.S. And then now, I mean, honestly, it's pretty clear to everyone that this is my home. This is where I live now. I have no intention of ever living in the U.S. again.
Yeah.
Because this is home. This is where I'm from. This is where I live.
Oh, that
We just now crossed that marker where I have now lived in Canada longer than I lived in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta for a decade. Now I've been here 1 year longer. So I was like, oh my God, that to me was really, 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 really kind of like, whoa, that's crazy.
That is crazy. So being a Canadian for 11 years, having grown up in the US, I guess maybe I said like no essay questions or it wouldn't be difficult, but I'm going to kind of throw one at you. Can you speak to what is going on in the United States right now on many levels with the pandemic, with Black Revolution, all of the things that are happening? And as someone who used to be an American citizen, who still is, you're a dual citizen.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts when you're kind of on the outside looking in now of what's happening in the US?
Oh man. It really is one of those things where, I mean, it just, again, it's not that it's unrecognizable, because this, I mean, all like, especially in terms of the Black Lives Matter stuff, that, you know, that was already, like, police brutality was already a problem anyway. And I think that you can definitely say one of the best things about cell phone technology is that now you can capture the offenses, whereas it was just more or less, you know, my word against yours, essentially. I don't know, it's terrifying, especially because obviously, you know, all of my family on my side of the family still live in the States. Mm-hmm. My mother's heartbroken and horrified. She's, I mean, obviously she is very vehemently anti-Trump, so she's of the opinion, she's like, she's convinced that he's a big reason why this is now a huge problem. I'm like, I don't think he was, I think he was a symptom, but he's definitely not the problem. He just made it very easy for people to be like, sweet, I can be outwardly racist and nobody will get it. And that's like,
right.
Okay. Because again, they were always there. They just now have been given a huge platform to be like that.
Right.
Publicly. And not, instead of being like shamed for it, they're being like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So it's heartbreaking because I have two nieces who are, one is 12 and one will be 10 in August. And, you know, and like my oldest niece is, because of the pandemic, and she doesn't immunocompromised, but she does get sick really easily. She had a flu that kept her out of school this past winter for almost 3 months. Wow. She's terrified to go out of the house. She's afraid of getting sick because she's been sick. She was sick so much in her past school year and missed so much school. Right. She's terrified to leave. She doesn't want to leave the house. Right. I mean, and I was, you know, she's, you know, obviously she misses school, misses her friends, but she's more scared of getting really, really sick again. So, and my sister is of the opinion where, because they live in South Carolina, which now, because they were in the first states to rush to reopen, have one of the highest infection rates in the United States. My sister's like, this is horrible because, again, she's like, they were determined to open everything back up. And now people are getting sicker. She's like, I don't know what the girls are going to do about school. I mean, yeah, it's really sad because, you know, my family is more or less just kind of like, well, great, what the hell is going to happen next?
Do you feel a little bit helpless for them and what's going on? And do you feel any better being here that we're in Canada? I'm not sure. You know,
I do feel better being in Canada, even though obviously I know Canada has its own problems. But I do try to temper, like, I mean, I try not to feel smug about it because that's, you know, first of all, that's not a helpful emotion. I don't know. The best I can do for my family is obviously talk to them, offer support, you know, let them know that, you know, they're, you know, where we align on our values. But my mom has more than once said, like, I'm so glad you're up there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It can be probably, she feels like as a parent, it's the safest place.
Yeah.
For you to be, you know, given the situation, and that's totally understandable. I was just really curious if you have moments where it's angering or heartbreaking or any of those things.
It is. I mean, honestly,
or being dealt with. I mean, we're dealing with all of the same problems everywhere, right? We're dealing with racism and COVID and all of these things everywhere. Maybe it's just that the U.S. has more of a spotlight on.
You know what? And I think a lot of the blame, I mean, honestly, lies at like the continuous 24-hour news cycle for that the U.S. seems to have, you know, has more or less pioneered back in the 80s and now has just like, I mean, constantly. And it's just, you know, it's just like outrage upon outrage where like nobody really has time to kind of like for self-care to decompress, to step away and kind of like take a deep breath and going, all right, give me a moment, then I can get back in the fight. It's always like your body is running all the time at 11. And I mean, I can only imagine what that's doing, like what that's doing to mental health across the board for activists and just everyday families. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That level of like continual stress.
Yeah. They're always living like fight or flight, I think, for everyone has now become the baseline, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where our body is laying in fight or flight is our new baseline. And it takes, and we've almost adjusted to it without, if I can say this, without trying to figure out a way to bring ourselves back down to this sort of actual, space of baseline or place we can be. We've all adapted to being in this thing, which is also maybe part and parcel why people are feeling so tense and so high strung right now, because that's the new baseline, and anything going up is enough to snap.
Absolutely. Like, again, nobody is really getting a chance to when I say unplug, I'm not saying ignore what's happening, but kind of give yourself a breather. Like, heck, even if it's something as small as like, having a cup of tea and just like not being online, even if it's for half an hour, we're not giving ourselves that time anymore. Yeah. We're just like moving on. We're continually feeding and like stoking that cortisol all up in our body. We're like, and again, I mean, honestly, if I could throw tons of money at activists that are doing that, like, because seriously, just take the day off for just one day. The fight will still be here, but you need to recharge to continue fighting, or else you're going to burn out.
Yeah. What do you think that people are doing? So before the activism and things that are happening sort of with the Black movement and different things that are going there and all of the ways that that's also bringing people up, do you think that people were taking time off to relax throughout COVID? So if we take that mentality and we flip it sort of to what the pandemic is, or do you feel people slowed down and sort of understood what's going on with the pandemic, or the way we're running out right now into the world is a reflection that we actually maybe didn't really learn anything?
I think that for a lot of folks, COVID was a chance to kind of slow down. You would still see, like, obviously, if like social media talking about like, this is your time to do things like learn a new language or do this thing. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be. Again, this whole mentality which I think is a very, very modern mentality, especially in like, I would say the past 5 to 6 years of like, you must always be productive. Like you always have to be hustling, and it's like, yeah, okay, but at the same time, where does that make time for your mental health? Like, I mean, I was guilty of seeing like going, I make bread. I'm like, but obviously not the level some people are like, I'm going to learn a new skill set. I'm like, or you could just kind of relish how quiet everything is right now. Yeah. You don't have to be on all the time. If anything, a pandemic and forced isolation should make you make you realize like, wait a minute, I don't have to be like on all the time.
I'm sitting here shaking my head, going fuck. Because,
I know you. Yeah, I know you.
Because the pandemic hit, and I wasn't allowed in the studio, but I was like, how many more projects can I start? What can I do? And I'm sitting here in this atmosphere doing this with you, and this was a project of the pandemic, essentially, this way of finding a new platform to do something. But I think it was also my way of it's a release for me to have these conversations.
Again, a way of coping, a way of like kind of like an outlet for like all the fear and frustration, and obviously, and I think one of the things that I think people weren't expecting to feel, because who wants to? I don't think anybody was expecting to feel the degree of helplessness, because nobody wants to feel like helpless. Yeah. And then you realize this is literally something out of the scope of your control. You cannot control a virus. And I think, I mean, even I wasn't prepared for like I think about a week or two after they started shutting things down, I wasn't prepared for like having a reaction where I was just like, I had a moment, like a panic attack moment of going, oh my God, what is happening? Like, this is scary. Yeah. And just like wasn't prepared for that, because again, it was just like feeling of utter helplessness of like, oh my God. And I really had to take a moment and I was sitting at the table and I had to like kind of hold on to the table and just kind of deep breathe and go, yeah, that is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling helpless. I'm feeling terrified because I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. I felt that too. Yeah. I think even in one of our last interactions at the studio, I was still having a hard time believing that what was about to happen was happening. You know, being like, if you need a hand and I can drive you anywhere. And I think even still part of me wasn't prepared for it. And it was like we did have to sort of take a moment and really acknowledge what you just explained, acknowledging that you
Yeah, I mean, again, it's nobody. I think I think that is one of the few times you'll probably get sort of a universal scale of a helpless feeling,
right.
where we're all like, oh, we cannot do anything about this. This is something out of our control. We can't. And it is, and it was terrifying. I mean, and obviously we all learn to cope and adjust. I'm still a little, again, as we've mentioned, I'm a little wary of everybody going, let's run back to normal. I'm like,
You and I are hiding out back. We're like, y'all go do it. If shit works out in 6 to 8 weeks, we will come and join you.
I know. I just want to do that thing like, okay, all right, you do that, and I'm going to be over here.
Right.
Just want to see what happens. Just want to see what happens. Just want to. No.
I agree. I'm with you. There's some days where I feel There's some days where I feel really so excited.
Oh, Karen.
Where I feel really protected from it, but I feel safe in my home and my decisions that I'm making. And then there's other days where I feel like a little brave and I go out and I see something and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that I'm still kind of operating under the thing of like, you run errands once a week. Like whenever there's grocery shopping on Sunday, I was telling my husband, like, okay, like, going, seriously, if you can think of anything at all, now is the time to get it, because you're not going to the grocery store until next Sunday.
Yeah.
If we don't have it in the house, either make do or do without, because I'm not doing this. I mean, I have to go to the post office today, and I don't want to.
I was just gonna be like, how stressed are you?
Don't want, like, again, and the library's doing curbside pickup, which I love, and I love
Okay, but let me stop you there. Does the library not freak you out?
No, because this is how they're doing it. I mean, like, it's crazy fan. It's wonderful. So essentially, obviously, when you get to the library, you have to call them. And then they let you into, like, they won't let you in. There's a table set up at the front door, and they open up the door at will and slide your books across. You grab them, then they close the door.
Wait, do the books not freak you out? What is the process?
They have, their policy is that they're sanitizing anything that you're checking out. They'll have already been sanitized. And when you return things, they're letting you know, like, if you were next in line to get this book, it's going to take longer because we have to sanitize it.
Okay. I'm just imagining, like, them putting it into this, like, magical box and, like, closing it.
Oh no, they're giving you, like, little paper bags to drop your books in. They're not even letting you. They're not even touching them. They're just putting them with their gloves on in, like, paper bags and just sliding it across. Look, like it's drugs.
Take it. Now go. Take it now. Get out of here. Take it now. Get out of here.
But, yeah.
I love it. So you mentioned mental health a little bit, and I'm curious what you've been doing throughout the course of this experience for your own mental health, and how you found it difficult to transition, because you and I are friends, but we started our relationship developed from just some wellness stuff that we did, and then we fell mad in love. But what are you doing? Because I know how much time you were putting into your wellness and your self-care and those things. So how did that transition for you?
Honestly, making sure that I do, as bougie and white girl as it sounds, doing yoga every day, man. Again, I've given myself the mandate, even if it's only 10 to 15 minutes on the mat, get on the mat.
I love it. Stretch
it out, because that has been a big part of it. I'm always a huge reader, but I've been reading a lot more, just because, again, and I weirdly enough, I know a lot of people during COVID were, like, binge watching the crap out of television. I didn't really watch much. I think with my
we did do Tiger King in the beginning, though. We did.
I didn't see it. I haven't seen it.
Stop. You're my hero.
My thing is, because I find that, I don't know. I mean, obviously TV can be relaxing, but how I was feeling mentally about, kind of, like, very unsure about things, like, especially working at a hospital and, like, having to deal, like, on a more closer to, like, the possibility of COVID. TV kind of made me feel that possibly just sitting down and binging on TV or just like zoning out kind of made me feel a little more anxious. I don't know why that is. I can't explain why, but I just felt like watching something would just like, I don't know, wouldn't take my mind off things.
Yeah.
And whereas, I don't know, I find reading, obviously, I'm able to relax more. But yeah, wellness for me have been, again, obviously making sure that I stay with fitness routines, yoga for sure, meditation. I
don't want to brag or anything, guys, but there's something to it.
Yeah, I mean, because things like that, just I'm somebody who very much craves routine.
Yeah.
And making sure that I have those things in place helps my mental health a lot. Sometimes a little too much, because if I miss something, I'm like going, oh God, and I'm like, okay, just calm down. You're human. Sometimes you get busy, or sometimes you're too tired. Just calm down.
And it isn't about feeling guilty because you didn't get there. And it's funny, someone explained to me once, and here's a really good way of gauging how we should feel at the end of a day. So maybe it isn't perhaps evaluating that we did or didn't get to execute the yoga that we wanted to do, right? Maybe it's not so much about executing the yoga. Maybe it's perhaps about what the build up to that was. Did you try and execute the yoga, but for some reason, be it you were tired, maybe you had a migraine, maybe you worked too long. There are things sometimes that get in the way. So you kind of gauge the reaction of how you are based on that. If you didn't try at all, then you didn't really want to do it. And then maybe that's a question where you have to have that conversation with yourself. Absolutely. But I think if you actually intended on doing it and something got in the way, then you have to give yourself, it's almost as if you did it because the intention was there the whole time to do that.
Oh yeah.
If that makes sense, or
it does make sense,
or helps in like the beating ourselves up, because I used to do that all the time. Like if I didn't get to yoga 5 days a week, it was worse. It was just like the most stressful experience, and it wasn't helpful at all.
I know, and it's so, and you're just sort of like, why? Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely learning to be more forgiving with myself if I don't hit those internal metrics that I have, where I'm like, again, it's weird. Again, it's also about trying to also allow myself to relinquish like that kind of control. Like going, some days it's not going to happen. You got to be okay with that. And my brain will be like, but why won't it happen? I'm like, because this is why you're on medication. That's why you're on medication, because we do this.
Stop talking to yourself. Don't talk to yourself. I think you just need to be a little bit softer on yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know that. But those internal voices that we have, those dialogue loops we get in, how to start to get yourself out of those. There's also something else that you do for your mental health that I find so admirable, and it was such a huge part of inspiring me on my own journey, and another thing that really draws us together and like makes us best friends for the rest of our lives forever and forever. Whether you want to admit it or not, is that you have also chosen a journey to walk away from alcohol in your life.
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about that, because that piece of what you're doing plays more of a role in my world in as a silent cheerleader for me that you don't even know you're doing. So I want you to kind of share that a little bit, because it's such a
I mean, obviously, I think we're at what? We're almost at 17 months without alcohol now.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Longest you've ever gone in your life since you started drinking?
Oh my gosh. No, I quit drinking, again, 17 months ago. It was one of those things where my modus operandi for booze was binge drinking. I'm sure I could go like a couple weeks without it, but when it was on, it was on. And
Marisa.
It was on. And it was one of those things where like, let's see, tabulating money spent, hangovers. I just basically, it was one of those things where, at some point my husband was like, again, are you really happy? Is drinking still like doing it for you? And I'm like, no, it's not. And I was thinking, but I kept thinking, but I can't really. I mean, I'm like, how about I can't possibly like quit forever, because my mind did this whole thing of like, but what about things like social events, concerts, parties, things like that, going, I would have to do all that without alcohol. Oh, nobody does
No, that's insanity.
Yeah, like
Who goes to a concert and doesn't drink?
Like I could go to one concert and not drink, but like all concerts for like ever. And it was one of the but the thing is, it actually turned out to be a lot easier decision in terms of being able to stick to it, because my partner quit drinking. I think had quit drinking 2 years prior. So I was the only one. So when having somebody already with that mindset in the house anyway, who was like, honestly, you're gonna feel kind of weird about it for the next 12 months, but after that, you just kind of find your way through. Mm-hmm. And it really did end up being like one of the best decisions I've ever made. It really legitimately is one of those things. Now I'm going, I could have done this years ago,
but I'm gonna challenge you on that. I'm gonna challenge you on that. You couldn't have done it years ago. I don't think because you weren't ready. I don't think it was ever anything that really crossed your mind as even damaging until someone else was like, are you really happy doing this?
Yeah, right? I mean, it came down to that question, you just sort of like running a catalog of like all the things that I missed, or the things that I got invited to that I couldn't go to the next day because I was too hungover to, and I was just, and I'm like going, God.
You start doing an audit of your time. And I don't think, you and I have both read a very similar book, and we kind of share the things that we read and that we go through, and really understanding that like our body needs a certain amount of time to function without alcohol. And most of the time, especially in the society that we live in, it's everywhere. It's not everything you do, it's there. But a lot of us don't know what it feels like to function without that for a few days, let alone a few weeks, let alone a few months, let alone possibly a year. What does it feel like to not have that in our life? Now, the way you tell your story, it almost makes it sound like once you decided it was really easy, but you and I both know that it was far from an easy decision to make. What were some of the biggest hurdles you came through?
Yeah, I mean, because again, it's having to re-navigate a landscape. It's been almost 17 months. I mean, obviously COVID changed things, but I still haven't been in a bar since I quit.
Okay.
And I'm still kind of nervous about going into a bar. I don't know if it's, I don't think it's less, I don't know. I don't think it's because the temptation to drink is, again, I don't think that's part of it. It's just that it feels weird. It's still not, my brain still isn't acclimated to the idea of being in a space like that where there's not alcohol involved. Mm-hmm. I haven't done things like that. But it was weird trying to figure out, explain to friends who are all supportive. My mom was 100% supportive. She's very pleased. It was sort of just kind of re-navigating who I was. Because my big thing before I quit drinking is that I was doing a podcast about women in craft beer. So I got, good Lord, how many breweries have I gone to? And obviously, because you're doing interviews, you get tons of free booze. You made a lot of connections with, whenever at the step, I was literally walking away from something that I was trying to do as sort of a career / hustle.
Right.
And having to give up, scrubbing everything. It was crazy. I was and because I'd spent so much time being in the craft beer scene and getting to know tons of lovely people, and realizing I am walking away from all this. Not only am I walking away from drinking, I'm walking away from a community that I have become a part of. Mm-hmm. And that was really weird. I mean, obviously I did lose some people that, from that. I'm like, again, I get it. Mm-hmm. But that's not going to change my mind. So it was that was kind of the scariest thing, was realizing okay, so now my craft beer podcast and column, now that's all over. That's gone.
That's part of your identity.
Years of work, all gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, don't regret it. It was it's a great decision. I really do have it pretty much almost every day where I have a moment where I definitely pause and go, I will never have a hangover again.
Yeah.
I don't have to drink. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love those moments because I'm like, shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's the feeling of, I find it quite valuable for my process to watch other people drink, almost to watch the excess to which it happens in, to watch the decisions that are being made when it happens. I find that those are valuable things for me to see. I have been, not necessarily to bars, but I've been to like restaurants or different things where people are drinking. I'll spend time pre-COVID. I was spending time with friends who a hangout was just me being the sober kid and everybody else drinking. And I should correct that by saying sober kid, like I am going to smoke a joint or indulge in cannabis in some way to be involved in, I want to kick back with my little recreational thing every once in a while, but it isn't booze anymore. But I do find that being around people sometimes who are drinking really actually does help. It doesn't make me want to drink. It helps me realize I've made a good decision. I feel like we won a secret lottery that not a lot of people know about.
Well, what is it? Matt and I were watching an episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Saturday night, and there was a scene in it. There was a scene in this episode where somebody was really drunk, and I told Matt, "This makes me so uncomfortable because I recognize it. This makes me so uncomfortable, even though I know that actor is acting and for this particular moment of being drunk, but oh God, that is awkward and a little too familiar."
Yeah.
And it still happens when I see things, when I watch a movie or something and something happens that involves somebody being like drunk, and I'm just like, okay. I don't want that anymore. Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay. I think I look at a lot of people, the shift of people in my life from my relapse to now is very different. But I do look at the people who have kind of hung in there with me, and the only thing I can say is like, thank you for putting up with my shit, and thank you for being here on the other side of it, because I know it wasn't easy. What is the one thing that you look forward to the most now that you don't consume alcohol anymore?
What I look forward to the most? It just, when you said when it's like winning a secret lottery, it really is like winning like huge chunks of time back.
Yeah.
Like it's like realizing I have I have more time now to do do whatever, because I don't have to go, oh, are we going to the bar? Or am I, it's the afternoon, I'm gonna have some beer. But I don't have to think about that and what time I'm gonna lose after that, after things like that happen. I'm like, no, I have time to do these things. I think honestly, it's one of the best things is just being able to realize that my time is not spent drinking, thinking about drinking, or dealing with the aftermath of drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I still that is still the greatest thing. I don't have to. Yes.
Wait, do you ever still think about having a drink though? No. Did you really throughout the process? Because I'm now coming into my 8th month, and I don't think about it so much anymore. And I was just curious, does it still ever cross your mind?
That's actually interesting that you've brought that up. So, well, obviously, when Matt and I, whenever I quit drinking, and we used to have a lot of that partake non-alcoholic beer, and we still have a couple. And I think we had one, we both had one last month. And Matt was like, this is weird, but I think I'm okay with not even wanting to drink non-alcoholic beer. He's like, I don't really want it. And I'm thinking, that sounds fair, because at this point, I'm like, I would bring some if I were going to say a barbecue. That way I could kind of, more or less feel like normal. Just feel, I don't know, more, I guess, hanging out with people. But at this point, again, aside from making my little seedlet mocktail, I don't really feel it. I'm not compelled to, or rather, I'm not interested in drinking anymore. I'm wanting a drink. But I also have to admit that part of that's because I've really carefully curated any social media and stuff I have to not involve alcohol. Mm-hmm. I don't follow anything that involves alcohol, and I don't know if the algorithm has finally has figured out that I don't drink, but I don't see that stuff.
That's actually brilliant that you do that. I really like that.
So a big part of it was especially that was very, very key whenever I first quit, was basically going through anything and unfollowing, or just everything that involved beer or beer cooch, just stuff like that. Right. Because I'm I don't want to have to constantly see that, because in my brain I'm oh yeah, but that is a limited edition Belgian pale ale. That would be good. So, I mean, and that's also, so basically just cleansing everything of like potentially like having somebody go like, isn't this refreshing? I'm like, no, not really. And so I don't feel tempted by it. I mean, I don't feel like I don't want to drink. I'm not interested because it's playing the tape forward, as I think and they say in AA is like, okay, it sounds good now, but play it forward. Okay, what happens after that drink?
Mm-hmm.
Is you stop there, or do you want another one?
Mm-hmm.
And another one? Okay, let's say that you have all those. Now what's next? And you're like, shitty decisions and a hangover. Nah, I'll pass, thanks.
Yep. And mine's that way.
Happy decisions sober, thank you.
I want to make happy sober decisions. If I'm sad, I'm sober and I'm sad. It's kind of like that feeling.
Exactly.
Like I do the same thing. It's not going to be one drink for me.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
It wouldn't be. One glass of wine would be like, I'm going to finish the bottle or I'm going to do a thing. But it's funny because now, you know, I don't really notice, and it was my business manager and best friend who someone asked her the other day if she wanted to drink. And she said, no, actually, I'm not. I don't want to drink. And they said, when did you quit, or how long have you been quit for? And she said, I just don't drink. She said, I didn't quit. I just don't drink. And it was so brilliant the way she said it. And I think that it's one of those things that I kind of want to, you know, adapt into my life, is also not attaching, because I don't like to attach as an addict in any way or like attach to these labels. And I think part of me now also doesn't want to attach with the idea of quitting drinking. I think I just don't drink. You know, I've been there, I've lived that life, I've done that thing, and it's really cool to be on the outside of it. Because I, like you, although I feel like, oh my God, so much wasted time and I could have done this much sooner, I don't believe I was ever in the state to have done it much sooner. I don't think it would have come with the same success and the same reward that I feel now with it.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think, I haven't been asked about why I don't drink in a long time, but I think if I were asked, probably one of my answers would be that I would probably say, because it does nothing for my mental health. Like, it doesn't help. It doesn't help with it. I mean, alcohol exacerbated like pretty much all the worst mental impulses I have. The panic, the anxiety, the depression.
It's borrowed time. Yeah, it's borrowed time. You borrow the happy time, which is the time you're drinking, but everything else surrounding it is anxious building up to. It's afterwards.
Oh, yeah. It's still there. Time. It's just waiting.
Yeah. And it's almost like borrowed double time. Like you get like a few hours of happiness and you get double that in shitty time, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The amount of happy time from booze versus the amount of crappy time from after the booze, that was whatever was happening before and is happening after. Oh no, it's a lot more, and it is very tenacious. It's like going, I'm gonna make you already feel bad from a hangover. Let's make you feel really bad. Let's revisit all the failures of your life.
Let's do it in a loop all day long. That Netflix and cheeseburger can't even.
Yeah, hangover, like settle in. We're here for the long haul.
Like, you're here for 2 to 3 days. You're over 25, bitches. Here we go.
Yeah. Oh boy, yeah, that as well. That's also a big factor. Can't recover anymore.
Yeah, you don't bounce back like we used to. Marisa, I'm so happy that you stopped in today to chat with me, and I miss seeing you in person. But I'm really getting used to it. We're in I think heading into our 4th month of seeing each other.
It's true. It's like our 4th month of.
You just fall to your knees. Why?
That is happening.
But I appreciate you more than you know. Everything you're doing is so impactful, and your story, whether you had the intention or not when you did this, is affecting other people's lives in a really positive way. So that's a really beautiful thing. So thank you for that gift that you've given me, because you really were a big part of the me kind of putting a stop to that engine. Because you were doing it so successfully, and you're just so like rad, and you were so happy all the time. And I was like, oh, we can do that.
That's a thing that can happen. You're like the best person. Like, again, it's really one of those things that, Matt, my husband, knows very much how valuable our relationship is to me, because he's like, she's more than that. I'm like, she is. She's wonderful. She's like one of the best people, and I'm so happy I found her.
I'm so happy you found me too. Listen, in our next life, like, don't wait so fucking long to find me, okay?
I had to come to Canada, then I had to come to Kingston. Oh, it was a whole thing.
It took a little bit of time. I'll try and meet you halfway somewhere next time. But I feel the same way about you. It's a weird relationship because you bring out, you just bring out playfulness in me that I genuinely love so much. And it's so great. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I hope you have a fantastic evening, afternoon, whatever you plan on doing. And I will see you soon for some more hang time. And we'll chat another time.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
I love it.
Okie
Bye, hun.
Bye.
And ending the conversation with a wonderful friend who began as a client. It's so funny how we never know what journeys our life is going to take with the people that cross paths in it. But I didn't or couldn't have told you almost 2 years ago when that incredible human being started working with me as, you know, her personal trainer and her yoga teacher, that she would soon turn to be a teacher of mine on my journey of sobriety away from alcohol. So I am forever grateful for you, Marisa. We'll see you soon, I guess. I'm gonna like kind of